You're checking into the Gramersi VODcast. Today, we've got Tanya Mulesa. She's the founder of the sustainable footwear startup Cleverstein, who are best known for their revolutionary convertible flat shoe that not only enables you to change your look, but also to save space in your shoe collection. So, Tanya, let's get started. In 2017, Simply Be surveyed 2,000 women, quite a lot of women, and they found that the average UK woman owns between 27 to 34 pairs of shoes. Now, that is a lot of shoes. Is this what kickstarted your great idea?
Hi, everybody. Yes, it is indeed. I have to say, I was shocked at first, but then when next year in 2018, I was moving house and I found that I have actually double the amount that an average woman owns. To be precise, I had about 53 pairs of shoes packed in 2 boxes, which were spanning from all sorts of events in my life, from moving 3 different countries with 3 different climates. So yes, I didn't do my decluttering bit, but also at the same time, I was actually wearing them from time to time because I just liked the variety. So it was shocking. And I was coming from, renewable energy background and sustainability. All of these things were in my head. And I just realized that I was quite a hypocrite by having so many shoes that I didn't know where those shoes were coming from, how they're made, and just simply because of how much energy has gone into making them. So I started my own research and I've interviewed about 500 women in London and in wider England to understand their relationships with shoes. And the survey that was conducted by Simply Be has really confirmed how many shoes women actually own. And what I try to understand is why do they have so many shoes? I knew why I had so many shoes, but I wanted to understand sort of wider relationships. And what I found out is it's not the actual shoe that women are after. It's just a little bit, a little variety that they wanted. They wanted a red shoe with a red handbag, or just making a statement with this different heel. And, they wanted flat, they wanted heel, they wanted trainers, they wanted this. So it's the actual, the look of the shoe that they wanted to be slightly different. And then I asked a question, would you actually, wear same shoe, but just change its look if you wanted to go out with a different handbag? And the answer was yes. And 90% of women that I interviewed wanted to hear back from me when I released this concept. And that was a good sign. So I decided to go ahead with it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to talk a bit about my personal experience. So I'm a minimalist. I just am. It's just the way I am. I used to be the opposite. I used to consume, trainers, hoodies, fleeces, whatever it was. I used to be a classic consumer of items, of products. But then my I guess you could say epiphany took place when I ended up being homeless at the age of 25, and that really transformed how I viewed everything forever, permanently. And ever since that's happened, I've never quite gone back to the way I was. Now, sometimes I've asked myself the question, I've said, is this because I'm warped, or, have I got the right line of thinking here? Or is this the way I should be doing it? Now, what I find fascinating is that looking through these lenses that I now look through, I see almost the world from the outside as a slightly different perspective. And I think to myself, the overconsumption of goods is, in my opinion, a big problem, especially when you're talking about global warming. You're talking about living on a finite planet with finite resources. So that's why I was quite interested and passionate about what you're doing. And it's almost like if you can nail the shoe problem, if that's the first thing you get right and you start there, what else can be changed? And maybe take that same line of thinking. So I was going to talk a bit about and get you to sort of input your feedback and opinion on what you think just generally about the overconsumption or the consumption of materialistic goods, and how that fits with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it started with the decrease of the price of goods. right? I mean, a generation ago, you had your Sunday bests and you never had this extortionate amount of shoes or clothes in anybody's wardrobe, especially after the Second World War. But when things started getting cheap, which was sort of late 70s, 80s, in the UK and US and wider Europe, things really have started going in slightly wrong direction for the environment, right? And we didn't have a much thought about it until the whole realization of the global warming kicked in and the wider awareness of what it's doing to the world. And in fact, shoes and fashion has been talked about much later than, for example, energy industry. So I personally come from the sustainable energy industry, where I've spent about 12 years of my life. And finally, sort of energy was the first problem that everybody tried to solve. Now it's the sort of the domino effect of what are we doing as consumers, right? And fashion, Forbes mentioned fashion 2 years ago was the second most polluting industry in the world. And that rings such huge alarm bells in my head that I started reading up on it. And actually this year, a fabulous journalist called Tansy Hoskins released a book called Footworks. And the statistics there are just unbelievable. So she's talking about 60 million pairs of shoes being produced daily in the world. 66 million pairs of shoes. And needless to say that 95% of them will be thrown away that same year. So, I'm an economist by background, so it just doesn't sit in my head, that amount of pollution. And when it comes to shoes are much more complicated than clothes, for example. It takes more energy, it takes more materials, it's more complicated as a construction. So I thought, I try to solve this problem. Obviously, what I'm doing is a little bit more complicated than just a simple supply chain, issue or design issue. What we're trying to do is change consumer habits, which is, as you probably know, the most difficult part in any sort of industry. But what's happening is there's history which is playing in our favor. Right. So in the 80s, a lot of women will remember in the UK, little shoe clips were a big hit. So, and, nobody thought about reducing the consumption of shoes back then. It was just a funky, cool thing to do. You would go out, you would have something flashy, plasticky, or something sparkly on and go out and have fun. So today we're looking at this from a totally different perspective. We're thinking about, so how can we actually accessorize that pair of shoes to just reduce the amount that you have in your closet? And luckily that generation that was back in the 80s, they're now, in their 50s and 60s, who can afford now something more environmentally sustainable, something maybe more expensive, more comfortable, more classy. And this is what we're trying to do with this belly flats, which was our minimum viable product. The very first product that we launched to the market was belly flats, because it's a British staple. Everybody wears flats here. And attaching something to the front of it made the most sense. And interestingly, when you do that, at first you would think, oh, how does that work? When you actually do put something on, it completely transforms the shoe. And actually, why don't I just show you straight away? So this is your standard belly flat, right? It's quite classic, nothing revolutionary about it. You would wear it in the office, or you just want to go for a walk or walk your dog or whatever. But the moment you start adding something to it, so I have quite a palette here. So this is our sort of showcase thing, but we have quite a bit of different choices here. So if you want to go out at night, for example, and you want to add something sparkly to your Christmas party, for example, you would then add something that would make it quite a nice evening issue, and you wouldn't even notice, right? You wouldn't even notice at all. And what's the best part of it? It is not sort of cheap add-on to your shoe as you would with the old little clips. which would fall off and rip your tights and just blister it and rub it. It was awful. But somehow industry never evolved from those little cheap clips until now. And then, the next day you want to go out and just, put your leopard print scarf on. Leopard print is very, very fashionable right now. You see it everywhere. It's in so I'll show you what I'm doing. So it's a little belt that you open up, and then you slide on a little sort of accessory. In this case, I have a leopard print accessory, and then you slide it through the belt like this, and then you pull the belt, and then you tighten it on the side, and then you have a little sort of leopardy type belly flat. So it's just a simple little twist, not fiddly at all. You get a lot of little accessories on the market, which you can put on trainers. Nike does it, etc. But it's very fiddly to just put them through the little laces, and it just takes forever. So we've done our market research. And I'm just hoping that, and we already have initial results from the market, that consumers change behavior when you offer them something fun, something inspirational. Nobody wants to be guilted into doing something, right? People just want to be inspired. And this is our attempt to do it. There's so many statistics that just make you feel so awful about the world. And we all are doing our best in reducing, consumption and maybe recycling a little bit, and, switching off the lights in the house when we're thinking about the energy, etc. But when it comes to fashion, you can't just guilt yourself into doing something. In fashion, it's all about inspiration, about fun, about really gamification of that, if that makes sense. So this is our sort of sneaky way of doing it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think your line of thinking is pretty bang on, because, this kind of started with the collapse of the manufacturing plant. I think it was in India in like 2010 or something. And that really kind of kick-started this whole movement. I can't remember the specifics of the incident, but I remember reading about it. And since that's happened, now we've had the ethical fashion forums popped up. We've had Who Wears My Clothes, Fashion Revolution. And the thing is, I think there's such a huge amount of awareness that needs to be done prior to people taking action. So it's almost like step one is talk about the problem. That's step one, right? And now that's been going on for quite a few years, to be fair, and to give these organisations credit. And then it takes someone to go, oh, hold a minute, I'm aware of this problem now. Right, what can I now do as part of that bigger picture to contribute towards resolving this larger scale problem? And I'm going to reveal something that might seem a little bit shocking. I didn't believe in this idea. When this started to happen, kind of 2015, 2016, I put my nose up, not because I don't believe in the idea, because I absolutely do, as I just explained. But the thing that I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, I just couldn't see how this market could evolve to that extent and how people could really take this seriously. Now, I'm wrong about that. I'll hold my hand up and say that I completely misjudged the whole situation. And actually, Cleverstein is a great example of someone that is, I think, in the future going to make huge leaps forwards with this problem, specifically within the fashion sector. So I just want to congratulate you on your amazing revolutionary idea. Moving on, one of the things that I found interesting is you're actually Ukrainian, and you used to work for Bloomberg, as you mentioned. So I was just going to talk. Could you just give us a real short overview, of your background? Talk about a little bit about your history, getting from Ukraine to the UK, and kind of how you've ended up where you are today.
No, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing better than talking about myself. We all love talking about ourselves, don't we? Well, I come from a very, very humble background in Ukraine, actually. We've survived the break of the Soviet Union, which was devastating for our family in the 90s. I don't know how, if you remember those days or not, but basically, it was, to the point of a 70% unemployment rate, and people were starving, and there's no food, and it was pretty bad. But I was very lucky with my parents, who always kept their head cool, and they always knew what the priorities are. Things like education, things like just keeping yourself calm and doing the best you can. So, and they kept me in that perspective. They stressed that I should study, I should go and do things that I like, and I did have a mother who was very quite fashion conscious. So she bought me this flashy cowboy boots when I was in my first year of school, and mind you, it is 1991, right? So it was terrible economy. Everybody was just sort of scrapping their together, and I was rocking up in these flashy boots. It was pretty hilarious now that I'm thinking about it, but it was kind of, I now understand that it's sort of the beginning of me being very fashion conscious as a person as well. I did sort of come through quite a few things. So I went to study to the United States, then I lived in Canada a little bit, and then I ended up coming to the UK to study economics in 2009, and that was the year where I first seriously encountered the where the world was in terms of pollution. So 2009 was the year when, as you remember, there were massive demonstrations, public demonstrations, against sort of governments in Germany, for example, building more nuclear stations, the pollution, the coal, etc. And same in the UK. The media was all about the energy pollution as an industry, how polluting that industry is. So I've decided to dedicate my master thesis then to the renewable energy sector, where I subsequently worked for 12 years. And I started off with working for a German wind turbine manufacturing company called Enercon, where I worked in Montreal, covering their Northern American businesses. And then me and my husband decided to move back to the UK, simply because we loved it. It was closer to my family and closer to his as well, and we missed it a lot, quite frankly. So we came back, and this is where I joined Bloomberg to work in their new energy finance division, which was the first in its kind to properly cover sort of sustainable energy and sustainable cars. The EV started off back then as well, so we were looking at all of these. And then one day, after I became a mother, I was shopping with my friend, and I I looked at this amazing black belly flat in one of the shops that had a very bright orange bow on it. And I had my very bright orange jacket on, and I thought, oh my God, I really want that. Amazing, it will so fit my jacket. And then my friend goes like, really? Like, it's such a cheap shoe, and it's gonna just get destroyed in 3 months, and you can only wear it with your jacket, and come on. And I'm like, oh, if only I could just take that bow off and walk just without it to wear it with my other clothes. So this was when the seed was planted in terms of perhaps the convertibility possibility of convertibility of shoes. And then there were a lot of other events when I was traveling with Bloomberg, and I went to Paris to see one of our largest clients in Paris in the oil and gas sector. And I walked into the meeting, and we had a beautiful meeting, and it was great. And then once I was walking out, and I was wearing my quite expensive flats at the time, but they were quite uncomfortable, and I was wearing a plaster on the back. And once I was walking out of the door, that plaster fell out in front of my very important client, and there was a bit of blood on it. It was awful. It wasn't the proudest moment of my life, I have to say. I did joke it off. I said, "I'm glad it's not my period pad that fall out," but that still was pretty ugly view. But and that was it. I thought, why aren't brands making very comfortable shoes that you can just walk in and feel like you're in your slippers and just be comfortable. And that's why my motivation for this was not just the convertibility, but also the comfort. You just want to feel great. You want to feel chic, but you also want to feel comfortable in your shoes. And that's why, we have this 3 key points in this shoe. So that the heel, which is actually very unique on the market, we were the first ones to design it in the way we did. So we split the heel in half. One is very firm. So when you walk, it always remains nice and elegant shape. But the upper heel, actually, when you walk, it's very soft, so it walks with you. So you never really blister your feet. It never rubs against your skin. So you just sort of, you walk and it's kind of nice and that. And then it's very nicely padded, sort of semi-orthopedic, etc. And you would never have stitches, for example, on your bones. So you would always have your bunions, for example, inside the soft skin. So you would never kind of feel. So in essence, it's a blister-free shoe. Which you can wear without any plasters, and it's been tested, it's been confirmed, so it's been great. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, George, I have to say, from the energy sector to fashion. And as I said, it was actually Forbes' article that inspired me to look into the fashion industry, and then when I started digging into it, understanding sort of is there any market for it? How can you switch? Then, the first thing of an entrepreneur is to see the niche and to see how far behind the industry is in terms of the curve. So I realized that fashion was about 12 years behind energy when it came to consumer awareness. 2009 was a demonstration against all the energy pollutants. And flash forward 2018, it was the Extinction Rebellion, which was demonstrating during the London Fashion Week against the wastefulness of fashion, if you remember. So and that when it all started, really, and there was a big gap in between in terms of the timing, and there was government support. You get all sorts of support for renewable energy and sustainability and energy efficiency, but fashion is just not there yet, and it's just coming. The government just had consultations with the fashion industry. They're just thinking about how to support it. And then there's a supply chain. Supply chain is really behind. It's really hard to come up with something very, very nice and sustainable, but we're managing. And the next collection we will release will be very cool.
Cleverstein products are made from waste materials from the fashion industry, handbags and apparel scraps by a social enterprise in Ukraine, where all Cleverstein products are manufactured. Wearers are encouraged to repair their shoes and can donate them to be recycled in return for a discount on their next pair. So Tanya, it's nice to see that you've included your Ukrainian heritage whilst maintaining your sustainability values. Could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I'll try to be very short. So we're all about 4 R's: reduce, regenerate, repair, recycle. So we reduce, obviously, the amount of shoes by just accessorizing them, and we're reducing the pollution as well. So all of the accessories here are made from waste by our little studio in Ukraine. So it's all handmade. But there's 2 I really wanted to chat about, which was quite fascinating. There's 2 little accessories over here. So one is made from scrap material from Deploy London. So this is a clothing brand which just had a bunch of scraps which we used to make these accessories. And the second one is Marca Scarampi, which is the Italian brand, which make amazing cape from this fabric. So we took their fabric and made this accessory. So we've collaborated with them, obviously, and so if their clients want to match something from their wardrobe with our shoes, we're happy to provide it. And so we also regenerate sort of oxygen resources using the supply chain, planting a tree for every pair of shoes we make. And finally, we offer discounts discount on every new pair of shoes if you send your old shoes back to us. At the moment, we just accept any shoes, to be honest, simply because we just started. So you can just send your flip-flops or anything you want, and we'll accept that. And then we'll send to our recycling partner, SOEX, and they will then sort of recycle them. So that's our 4 hours.
Sounds amazing. So you've got a partnership with WeForest. Could you talk a bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So WeForest is this wonderful reforestation NGO, which works with a lot of companies who wish to contribute to basically global reforestation. So we give them money, which we make from the shoes, but we kind of invest in advance so that we plant right after we make the shoes. And they then employ disadvantaged women across various communities. So we particularly chose to work with Zambia, where, first of all, it's a tropical country. So trees stay green there the entire year. So that oxygen gets generated the entire year, not just, half of the years it would be in the UK. But also what they do there, they employ women to obviously work on saplings. And then they would then go off and replant those trees in deforested areas to contribute to rewilding of Zambia terrains. And what they also do, they help those women who are coming from the farming communities with beehives. So whilst working on this project, they also plant beehives around and collect honey. So it's very sustainable kind of. It's not just your typical NGO you feed and then you have to go and fundraise again, but it's the project which pays women so they can sort of work on their own farming and making honey, which they can then resell and then eat, and then so it kind of becomes sort of sustainable, almost business model for them.
Sounds great. So you were a bestseller at Bicester Village pop-up run by, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, it's the Mayak Collective. You were alongside 40 other sustainable luxury brands last year. So could you talk about that and some of your other successes to date since launching, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we indeed were very, very, we've done very well in Bicester Village, simply because the approach we took was primarily trying to collect feedback from women in Bicester Village. So I approached them asking, can you give me feedback on this? And when they started thinking about it during the course of the conversation, they got more and more excited about, this product. And they're like, oh, give me to try them on. And they try them on and walked away with, with a beautifully comfortable pair of shoes. So it was great. And as you know, Bicester Village is a sort of the luxury outlet, the best selling luxury outlet in the UK. So we're very lucky to join, and Mayak was very great, which we appreciate their help. Some of the other successes, so we've managed to secure a couple of grants throughout this pandemic. So pandemic wasn't great for our business, I have to admit, as it wasn't for quite a lot of businesses, and particularly for our former Bella flats, which are great for traveling, for office, and that was certainly not our best year. But what we did find interesting is that the funding, R&D funding, and sort of sustainability focused funders really liked our idea. So we got support from Innovate UK, which is UK government's sort of grant funding body, to develop the new attachment mechanism on the shoe and use the most sustainable materials and to use the sort of the most durable version of the shoes that we're trying to develop. We also got support from Global Center for Eco-Innovation to come up with tech products which will support will help us commercialize the circularity behind our shoes. We can talk about it later. It's a completely new subject for us. And yeah, we have a lot of very, very great clients who are really looking forward to our new releases. And a lot of them came back to buy more accessories, to buy a different color of shoes, and spread the word, really, the word of mouth effect. So it was great. I'm looking forward to 2021.
Good, you should be. So, what channels and routes are Cleverstein intending to sell through, like in the future? Like, where do you see the business sitting in terms of the market?
Absolutely. So we really would like to work with large retailers, both online and brick and mortar. We really would like to see ourselves represented by large, both traditional and new retailers, as well as really work with influencers, both in business community as well as in community. So we will be looking to work in those two fronts, sort of both wholesale markets and work with influencers to drive awareness and the coolness of what we're trying to do.
Sounds amazing, actually. So, what's next for the brand? I mean, are you thinking convertible high heels, convertible handbags? Like, what's next?
Thank you. So we are currently working on three new styles, which is trainers, fashion trainers. So if you want, you can run in them, but we won't be trying to compete with Nikes, Adidas's, and the likes. But we will be making fashion world a lot more comfortable through aesthetics of trainers and the ability to glamour them up a bit with jewels. And we're also working on sandals, and we're working on sort of on heels as well. It will be different aesthetic. It will be different attachment mechanism. It will be with a focus on actually jewelry rather than the scrap. But we will be using scrap to make jewelry, if that makes sense. So it's going to be very, very interesting what we will be doing. It's all secret at the moment, but it will be very chic and cool.
It sounds amazing, Tanya. I mean, I think what you're doing is revolutionary, and I'm really excited to see what other innovations you release down the line. I'm very excited to check it out. Last but not least, I'm going to ask you a question that I know you're going to be passionate about, so answer it how you will. So, in terms of giving other businesses advice, so obviously we write about a lot of different types of brands. Lots of them are sustainable, are eco-friendly, and a few of them aren't. What advice would you give to those companies out there right now, specifically within the startup arena, that want to do something to make themselves more sustainable, more eco-friendly? What would you say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, brace yourselves. It's a tough world, really, especially now, to be able to find that balance between being very sustainable and getting the right price. And that is the hardest challenge to achieve, that balance between sustainability and price. What I did find throughout the journey over the last 2 years is that the most sustainable products are those that are the most durable on the market. It doesn't really fit with a lot of fast fashion brands, which want you to destroy your one garment and come back for the next one, right? Same in the electronics industry. They really want your washing machine to break, etc. But for the new era of sustainability conscious consumers, the durable products will be winning, and I'm very, very certain in that. And there will be new, perhaps commercial models around them, perhaps subscription based, perhaps reduced repairs or anything like this. But the era of durability is coming back from back post-war period. So I would say it doesn't matter how recyclable or recycled your materials are, or how cool sounding your materials are and what you're using. The biggest focus should be on the durability. And then you will figure out your business model on the back of that. So I'll stop at that.
I think that's actually the perfect place to stop it. It kind of summarizes what we've spoken about, isn't it? So, everybody, I just want to give a massive thank you to Tanya from Cleverstein. She's been a great guest. This is a really hot topic right now. She's doing amazing work. So I just want to thank her for her time. Thank you for being a guest on the Gramersi VODcast, Tanya. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, George.